the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
This is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Peerless AV, driving technology through innovation.
It's Tom Albright with AVNation with a Women of AV podcast. With me today is a woman that I've used her company's product for almost 20 years, it feels like, Barbara Spicek. Barbara is the president and general manager of New Tech. Welcome, ma'am.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I say almost 20 years. It does feel like that. New Tech has been an innovative company from the very beginning. You guys have changed really the face of production, live production, as certainly as COVID came about in the pandemic, virtual production and streaming. But first and foremost, Barbara, one of the things that we find out, and you and I have been to enough trade shows, we kind of know this question. But how did you get into the AV industry?
That's a very good question. And Tim, you might know from my background, I have 20 plus years in tech, and primarily I was in hardware, software, networking, storage, big companies like Toshiba and Brocade Communications for many, many years. And been almost 70% of my career in like direct and indirect sales roles. So primarily indirect, which means I'm a real expert when it comes to channel alliances, tech alliances. So interesting enough, when VizRT Group, who we are part of, after the acquisition, approached me, that deep dive channel expertise was really key to them, because the whole AV market obviously is primarily a channel, driven market. Personally, I am a sports fanatic, and I actually used to be a rugby player, believe it or not, a very strange sport, but I'm highly competitive, and I just love challenges and building things. So when they approached me, I was just fascinated by the industry. Tech is tech. I've done tech my entire life, but actually AV tech is way more exciting, right? All of a sudden you talk about productions, and I've been involved in the own live productions we did at New Tech, like our town halls, our sales kickoff, and so on. It's just more exciting tech,
Absolutely. I want to pause for a second here because of your background and the storage and what I will affectionately call the traditional IT realm. Talk for a second about your experience there and how you're able to convert that or transfer that into your role at New Tech.
Yeah, no, and that's an excellent question. So first of all, I've been somewhat in touch with Pro AV and broadcasting before, because, for example, storage at Nexon Technology that I was leading for 2 years, we were providing the archiving systems used, right, for broadcasting. On the networking side, we're probably going to talk NDI a bit later, but networking was always part of my life. So I've been to shows like NAB, I've been to somewhat in touch with the Pro AV world before. And then specifically converting this, the actual build out of channels and infrastructures, and coming from large, $1 billion Silicon Valley companies, applying that to like you said, a 30-year grown, technology driven, but still somewhat startup, was just very valuable.
Yeah. You mentioned the fact that you like challenges. I'm very much impressed with you, the fact that you are a rugby player. It is a sport that I absolutely love. I cannot play it anymore, but it is one of those that I fell in love with many years ago with an old friend of mine. Talk about some of those challenges, both through the IT space as well as now in the live AV space and the AV space in general that you faced.
Yeah, and it's again, that's a very good question. So first of all, since this is a woman in AV interview, right, is I think, and I like to generally mention here that as a woman, especially early in my career, and I've got a long career, so it's been the early days when there was way more, obstacles, but you almost find that you have to work harder, faster, more focused. You really have to sometimes make sure that you're not dismissed in meetings, right? Get the seat at the table and so on, and generally build up that tenacity and resilience that probably my rugby background helped me with, right? To build some of that up. And you really have to learn how to overcome this and be forceful, right? But without being too aggressive. Then you get criticized again. And you really have to learn to just deliver results, right? And really ask for promotions. Because as I said, as a woman, you will always face, although things have changed a lot, but you will always change that thing that, you have to almost go harder and faster at it. And then if we look at specifically new tech, when I joined, as I said, I was hired by the Visa T Group
Yeah.
after the acquisition. And really, that whole integration, anybody that has ever gone through mergers and acquisitions will know that that's not an easy task, right?
Yeah.
They were pretty much serving the broadcasting market, new tech more of the broader Pro AV market. There's overlaps, then there comes the operational, the systems integration, all of that. So that was definitely a challenge, and finding the operational efficiency, processes, partner landscape, and so on. All of that was definitely a challenge. But I always say challenges are opportunities, which is why as you asked earlier, what did you bring in from your experiences in all the tech world? I was able to bring a lot of the blueprints and the things I did, into new tech and convert and put them to success.
Yeah, absolutely. You are not the first woman I've interviewed that has made the comment about working harder, being smarter, getting your seat at the table.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I know the answer to this, but I'm still going to ask it. I'm
Okay.
still going to ask because I think the answer is unfortunate, which is why I said I think I think I know. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is what it takes? Why do you think it takes a person, a woman, to outwit someone else? Why do you think it takes so much more effort for them to be recognized, for women to be accepted at the table? Why do they have to work X, Y, and Z more times harder than the men at the table to be taken seriously? Maybe is the best way to ask that.
I would say I would really only simplify it to, I think that is still like the old perception of the man is the bread bringer, the woman, is raising the family. Because even interesting enough, even in interviews, sometimes you would have that little snippet in there, what you plan for the future, right? Do you plan a family or so? I think there is still some of this old, just, man versus woman perception and what your life story should be. And that prejudice, I think, is, as I said, it's getting less and less and less. But I think it's just still there. It's historically grown that the woman is not the breadwinner, and that perception sometimes is in the back of the mind.
You also mentioned there is something that I want to hone in on, and I'm not asking you. I'm relaying a story, but you're more than welcome to comment on it. I have a dear friend who she was in the process. She was in a relationship with another young man in the industry. They were both in the industry. She was the head of a marketing department. He worked someplace else, right? And a coworker asked her when they were going to get married and have kids, right?
Hmm.
And she said, "Oh, it's not my thing. I'm focused." You could feel and see the disappointment in this coworker's face. Now, it was an older gentleman, but that's beside the point. Where the expectation was, as the woman, you would have children, right? You would procreate in some
Yeah.
way, shape, or form. And I've never had that question asked to me in
No,
the
that's what I'm
50
saying.
years I've almost been on this planet. Yeah,
Nobody ever asked you that question, and
yeah,
as I said, it's for me, it's very insulting because, to your point, nobody would ask a man, "What's your plan? Are you moving to Michigan next year or whatever?" Right? Because that could also be life changing and affect the job you have. But it's almost like a given in the mind. That's what I'm saying. It was probably going to take a couple of years to overcome. It's better, but I think that's one of the big underlying. It's this pre-perception.
yeah, absolutely. When you look at some of those hurdles that you overcome, there are options, right? When you're sitting in a situation where you do have to work harder, or somebody does ask you, what are your plans for your family? how do you overcome that, or maybe why do you choose to overcome that instead of telling them, you know what, hit the brisk, guys. I'm going to go over here.
Yeah, no. Well, and that's usually what I did a couple of times. I did actually a couple of times go like, that's inappropriate questions, right? Park that one. But I think in general, as I said earlier, one of the key things is I think you have to learn, to very much bring your message across, being very factual and being without aggression, because otherwise it's the other way, like, no, oh, now she's getting like, emotional or whatever. So you have to really learn to be very factual, very unemotional, learn to influence, right? Because I think it's very important that you learn to influence your bosses, actually ask for promotions. Because it's interesting. It's also when you look as a woman, sometimes there's the promotional line, and then it's like, who would be the successor? Sometimes they don't look
Yeah.
at the woman, right? You actually, as a woman, you have to actively raise your hand. And usually I do a lot of coaching of coworkers as well. I always say, you have to raise your hand. Trust me, if you don't, they will overlook you. And then at the end of the day, it's delivering results, right? If you focus, on delivering results, it's very much difficult to actually overlook you, right?
I'm going to ask a question here, and this is more somewhat personal because my in my day job, I run a fantastic marketing department, and the vast majority my team members are women. How do you coach? How do you coach to raise your hand? How do you coach that? How do you encourage that when either society has raised women up to say, no,
Yeah.
put your hand put your hand down, right? Or maybe the culture that they're in, doesn't necessarily encourage that, or maybe actively discourages that.
No, and I mean, coaching is coaching, right? I always say, I've always said as a leader my entire life, I said, do as I do, not do as I say. I'm not one of these like just give an order. I like it very collaboratively, and think tanks and coaching. And when I do as I do is I get to be respected because I am semi-aggressive. Maybe I can't help it. I'm German and it's my rugby background or so. But I think sometimes what I found, and I did at Brocade, for example, I did years of actually coaching. We had a university program where we put younger women in, and I've been coaching. I went on summer walks with them, and they watched me doing the town halls. So I think it's really this, do as I do, and them seeing, that you can have a career, and then also watching you be more resilient and a little bit more aggressive. That really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. When you eventually retire, and you are not near it, and neither am I. So, but we're in that direction, and you look back, whether it's at New Tech or it's another company, and you look back on this industry, both the tech industry and AV. What do you want to see have changed when you retire?
Yeah. So first of all, when I look at what I want to have a change, there's it's a blend of things, right? Firstly, I've been loving my career path and I want to continue the career path. And when I look at where I got into AV, it's a perfect storm, right? It's the AV market is exploding. COVID really fueled that. Nowadays Pro AV is tier two, tier three broadcasters, enterprise, houses of worship, education, bloggers, podcasters. It's everywhere, right? So I find
Yeah.
this absolutely exciting. And then building on the strength that NewTek has with their products, their channel, and their teams, right? So I have my business ambitions, which is I want to take NewTek really to a top organization, continue to drive female leadership. And by the way, we have a lot of female leaders in NewTek, which is great. And then I have my business goals with continuing to drive NDI adoption. With my background in networking, that's also what fascinated when I joined the group here, because NDI, as you know, stems out of New Tech, right? It was
It
invented
does.
there. Me as a networker, I totally understand the power, right, of doing live production IP based and software driven, and that's the ambitious goal. I just want to be the leader. And then if you look at broadcast, which is more what our mother house does with high-end broadcast graphics, I mean the number of broadcasters is probably like maybe a 2,000 in the world or so. if you look at the market of Pro AV, it's the hundreds of thousands, right? And it's
Yeah.
growing and growing in terms of customer. So I have, as I said, I have the business ambitions there, but at the same time, I just that might sound cheesy or whatever, but I just want the world to be a better place, And I do very much. I had a good upbringing. I had an absolute loving and good mom who taught me things like respect and ethics, tolerance and support and have empathy for people. And I had this throughout my entire career. I believe in this from a leadership perspective as well. That don't always just think about what job people have to do for you. Understand what's their background, and you will see that people will actually step up and do much more for you, or are more engaged with you than if you just think about materialism, what's the plan, and so on. So I know, as I said, that was the more personal goal, but I think that's important too. When you want to retire, you want to be proud of where you ended.
I think there's something to be said about that. Though. It's not cheesy, right? I wouldn't say it was cheesy. It's exactly what you're taking. Not just the career part, and not just the work part, but also personal, right?
Yeah.
You do want the world to be better. Um, so here's the catch to that question, which is the follow up. How do you, Barbara, affect that?
How do I affect that? Okay, so let's look at the business goals, right? With
Okay.
getting a world class team together, and I'd say I've been doing this pretty successful the last 2 years already. It's really the leadership style. Like I said, I love to work collaboratively. I do think tanks. I really empower my people. I as I said, do as I do. Be inclusive and support those who want to come up, right? Which means including women. As I said, I hear diverse voices and I bring them up. So that's hopefully translating and impacting and making this the new tech success. And then NDI, we are NDI. As I said, new tech, every single product is like,
You are indeed.
yeah,
Yep.
NDI. I always say like NDI is the blood pumping through our veins. That's my favorite saying. And all our sales guys open a conversation with NDI and then close the business. And then also Visa T Group, right? We have separated out NDI into its own business group last year because that group goes to all of the peripheral vendors, right? The camera, the peripheral manufacturers. The more we can drive adoption, right, the more we can be successful here. And then obviously we want to be the leader in Pro AV. We've got some good market share over the last couple of years, and that again I can impact that, right? I as a leader
Yeah.
in new tech, I can drive our marketing, our product excellence, our global expansion, which has been huge for me because over the last 2 years, new tech has expanded in EMEA and in APAC, which of course I love because I am a European. And then creating all these coverage models, to make sure you address certain verticals, you have solutions for any budget level and any technology needs. So I have a lot of things where I can personally impact that. And then when I look at my personal goals, as I said, it's just try to be a respectful human being and manage people the way you want to be managed. I think there was this saying, there's this old saying, always treat people the way you want to be treated, right? And it's sometimes as simple as that.
Yeah, it is simple. I am going to throw you kind of a one little last question here, and as we're recording this, my lovely young daughter turned 16 this week, and as she gets older, this becomes more and more important to me. I was like you; I was raised with an incredibly strong female figure. My mother was probably one of the smartest people that I knew, and her and my sister were incredible examples. And part of my job, and certainly my wife's as well, but part of my job is to pour those same things into her. Talk to for a second about to this next generation of young women coming into not just the AV industry, but tech in general, STEM in general, right? Where traditionally there have been biases, and some hurdles for them to overcome. Certainly, women like you, and I can list the women that we've interviewed on this
Yeah.
series. who have overcome those, right? And I can sit here and list off a number of others. But what would you tell them as they were starting out their career and going down these paths that have been trailblazed, right? But there are still hurdles in their way. What would you tell them?
Well, like I said before, I think it's really it's you have to make sure that you build up resilience, because there will be insulting people, and there will be commentaries, and there will be whatever. So unfortunately, you have to sort of like build up a little bit of a thick skin, because you will, if you, and I had examples where, frankly, some just weren't made out for it, and they threw in the towel, and they were like so insulted by sometimes the hurdles they were facing, which, as I said, resilience and tenacity, I think, is the main thing, because that's like you said, the world is changing to the positive, but it's not changed completely, right?
No.
And then really, focus on the job and delivering results, because if you even if you have to run faster and harder, but if you produce good results, it doesn't matter whether your boss is a woman or a man or whatever, they just can't ignore it, right? So it's really important to not get emotionally involved, and like I said, stay focused, stay on the subject, stay factual, and just deliver results. And sometimes learn to live with the punches and raise your hand.
All right, very good. Barbara Spicek, thank you so much. It was very lovely to meet you and to get to talk with you. How do people connect with you? How do they connect with New Tech?
Well, they can connect with me anytime. I'm on LinkedIn. They can reach me under bspecek@newtech.com, or they can meet me at NAB or one of the next shows.
All right, very good. Barbara Spicek, thank you so much. For us, for AVNation, go by our website, avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others and all of the other fantastic women in the industry that we have interviewed. All that and more at avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv.